Okay, good morning, friends. It's a pleasure to be back again this Sunday. And our speaker this morning is Dr. Roshen Dalal. She hardly needs any introduction to the participants of Indore Study Circle because Dr. Dalal has spoken before this group even earlier. But for those who are hearing us for the first time, I'll briefly introduce her. Dr. Roshen Dalal is the author of 12 books, which include the best-selling two-volume Puffin History of India, the Puffin History of the World, also in 2 volumes, The Religions of India, a concise guide to 9 major faiths, Hinduism, an alphabetical guide, the Vedas, an introduction to Hinduism sacred texts, the 108 Upanishads, the compact timeline history of the world, India at 70, snapshots since independence, J. Krishnamurti, A Life of Compassion Beyond Boundaries, and one novel, The Guru Who Came Down from the Mountain. Currently, she is completing a book on Sri Aurobindo and is also engaged in historical research. Is the book complete by now, ma'am? Anyway, okay, we'll know it from her. And is also engaged in historical research. Apart from books, she has written numerous articles and book reviews. She has a PhD in ancient Indian history from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Just one moment, please. In the specialized field of historical geography, she has taught at both school and university and worked for many years as an editor. Born in Mussoorie, she is now settled in Dehradun, Uttarakhand. The theme of Dr. Roshen Dalal's talk today is, Has Anyone Changed? An Analysis. I want to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Roshen Dalal and also want to thank her for sparing her time for this group and being with us today for this talk. So, ma'am, you are aware of the protocol we follow. You can go ahead and begin your talk. Kindly unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, good morning and thank you, Dubey ji, and all others of Indore group and everyone who has come today. I thought of talking about change because when we look at the world today, I'm sure we all feel a bit dismayed or disappointed. We see the war in Ukraine, the problems in Yemen, Syria, Sudan, and of course, in India too, we see a kind of polarization increasing. So I thought of going back and looking a little bit at what Krishna ji had said about change, and also looking at who has changed in the past, whether change can be partial or it has to be total, and what is the way that further change can come about in our lives and in the world. So I would like to, and also we have to see, why do we want change? I would guess that anyone who attends, reads Krishnamurti, attends any talks, looks at his videos or everything that is available online, I guess there is only one motivation. We do want to change, either within ourselves or we also want to change society at large. So I guess the first step has been taken by everyone who has an interest in Krishna ji. The first step towards change is already there. But how do we proceed and what does this change consist of? So to start with, I would read a few passages, perhaps one or two passages from Krishnaji to remind us about what he talked about. So as he said, you are the repository of all humanity. You are the world and the world is you. And if there is radical transformation in the very structure of the psyche, you affect the whole consciousness of man. I think this is one of his most important statements, that as soon as we change, we affect everyone. He goes on to say, Hitler has affected the whole consciousness of man. Stalin, Lenin, Mao, and the priests in their own way have affected the consciousness of man right throughout the world. So when there is a radical transformation in you, who is the whole residue of humanity, you affect the whole consciousness of man. This means a tremendous thing. If once you realize that you are responsible for the whole of humanity, because all the history of mankind is in you psychologically. So we find that this most important statement is the base of all that Krishna ji says. So it is with this in mind that he looks at other topics. He says the world has to change. I'm not exactly quoting, but he has often said chaos, misery, war, conflict has to cease. This change begins with each individual, not with a peaceful or violent revolution or with social reform. Again, he says the change can't come through God, because who or what is God? According to K, it's just a projection of fancy, imagination, and you project this and an idea is called God. Neither, he says, can gurus, authority, or systems of meditation guide you. There was a dialogue long ago which took place where he was asked about the changes taking place in California in the 60s, which was a time of, a new age kind of revolution. And he said, this is Needleman who asked him that can this interest in religion and transcendence cannot be a seed ground from which certain unusual people, certain masters perhaps, can spring up. But Krishna ji did not find this likely. He said that all this Hare Krishna, transcendental meditation, Krishna consciousness that was current in those days, he called it all this nonsense that is going on. They are caught in all that. It is a form of exhibitionism. It's a form of amusement and entertainment. For something new to take place, there must be a nucleus of really devoted, grave, serious people. At this time, Needleman also said that the youth are the seeds of the future. But Krishnaji said, youngsters he sees do not seem serious. Why make a thing out of young people when in a few years they will be old? And where are they at the end of it? Then I would just give you one more passage. He again and again emphasized that the key to transformation, the one thing that would lead to total revolution, is love. Love has to be universal and not linked to sexuality. He said, love means the love of rocks, love of trees, love of a strange dog, love of the skies, the beauty, the sunset, love of your neighbor, love without all the sensation of sexuality with which it is identified now. Love cannot exist when you are ambitious, when you are seeking power, position, money. I'm sure most of you are familiar with all these things, but this is just a reminder to all of us of what he says. Again and again, he repeated that a total revolution is essential. But this we are talking about is an inner psychological revolution and not an outer one. Again, many times he says, love is essential, which implies total responsibility for the whole of life. It's not love as we normally refer to it. Love is the total answer. Without that, do what you will. Stand on your head for the rest of your life. Sit in a position. Focus or whatever you do. Lotus or whatever you do. So with that intelligence goes the other. Without intelligence, you cannot have the other. They are inseparable. And that is why compassion has this quality of great intelligence. And that is the solution which will solve all your problems. So this is to remind us of what Kay said about the need to change within ourselves to remove this sense of, I haven't brought it up here, but also he talked about dropping the sense of identity, of belonging to a nation, religion, caste, and setting aside, looking within. It is only through knowing oneself and looking within that this total psychological transformation would come about, which would then transform, help in transforming the whole world. Yet, even towards the end of his life, Krishna ji often said that I've been speaking all these years, but nobody has changed. He talked of the great energy that was running through him, which would now be ended. And he said he was disappointed that he felt no one was transformed. But at different times, he did say different things. And here we again ask this question. Firstly, when you change, what is it that changes? How is it that you are transformed? In what way? And secondly, if that total change is not necessary, is not possible, can there be a partial change? Is that also of any value? For this, I hope others would join in. But before that, we are going to look at some instances of change or near total change. He had this friend and follower, Susunaga Veeraperuma from Sri Lanka. And when he asked him this question that why has nobody changed, Kay said, this is not so. He gave two examples. Now, I would say these two examples don't sound very convincing to me, but anyway, he said on one occasion, he was living in North India and he met this sannyasi who was many days would walk past and they would have a dialogue, a little meeting every day. I'm guessing, though he hasn't given the place, it might have been when he was in Ranikhet, but not very sure. So he says, one day this sannyasi said to him, now I'm going into my cave. And he said, why are you going there? And he said, to be silent. So Krishnaji said, if your mind is chattering, how will going into your cave make you silent? He says, in that moment, the sannyasi was shocked. He saw clearly. His mind stopped chattering and he was completely changed. I don't know whether anyone could say exactly later on in what way he has changed, but Kay felt he had totally changed. He gave another incidence to Susunaga that one day a stranger was walking with him and smoking. Suddenly the stranger saw it was a bad habit and he threw his cigarette away. K says, at that moment, K as quoted by Susunaga says, at that moment he became free not only of smoking, but of all conditioning. The mind was fundamentally transformed. So these are two incidents he recounted to Veeraperuma. And we must note again that they took place in Krishnaji's presence. So this is another question. Is his presence required? Can we change without his presence? I will come back to them later. So now I'd like to go on to a few people who claimed to have changed, and two other, we can't go into everything, but two people who claimed to have been radically changed. And I would say that if we look at people who surrounded Krishnamurti, there are any number of people who have changed, but whether they have been totally transformed, I can't say. Here, there was one very woman who was not really known, not well known outside Krishnamurti circles, who was called Tapas or Chinmoy, who after being with a guru and so on, she left this guru and began to take care of Krishnaji's clothes in India. She also went to Sanin at some time. It seems to me that she was a person who had changed. She gave a few talks, but I don't think there is any, I could not find any account of the content of her talks. But she seemed to have been quite transformed after meeting him, and she stayed near him for much of her life. At least she was in India. She went to Sanin also at times. Then we have the famous case of Vimla Thakkar, who Krishnaji had healed. She had a terrible pain in her ear, and after many sessions, her ear was healed. And she also claimed that through this healing, her mind and her was also transformed. Vimla Thakkar was again a spiritual person. She had been with a guru. Then she had joined Vinoba Bhave in his Bhudan movement. So when she met K, it was not something new to her to look at or speak to a spiritual person, but she felt she was totally transformed after this. It seems that at one time, Krishnaji told her to go out and tell people her way of thinking. I don't know if those are the right words, but her new sense of dropping all conditioning and the chattering mind. But later on, he felt that she had nothing to do with him. Nor did she always claim. She did claim at one point of time, but then she went her own way. She wrote books and she taught, she spoke about how to transform oneself. She was also a social activist who set up organizations for material transformation. She said that spirituality and social activism need to go together. Though at one time she said, if you transform yourself even, that is sufficient. So Vimla Thakkar later on, he did not acknowledge that she was transformed through him, but she felt that. We have another example, U.G. Krishnamurti. U.G. Krishnamurti, who had many childhood similarities with R. Krishnamurti, in that his mother died at birth and he was brought up by his grandfather. He was in the Theosophical Society, plus his grandfather was rather traditional. Then he married, he had children. He listened to and at one point he felt he was transformed. After that, he stopped listening to Krishnaji. As some of you may know, he had set up a separate meeting place at Sanan, and all those who were who came to listen to Krishnamurti, some of them also went there. There was no friendship thereafter between U.G. Krishnamurti and J. Krishnamurti. But U.G. consistently and always seemed to have a deep respect for Krishnamurti, even if he did not express it always. There's this book by, forgetting his name, I'll get it in a minute, where he says how his body changed. U.G.'s body changed at the time of Krishna's death. And he realized then that this man was gone. So we find some similarities, let us say a lot of similarities in the philosophy, even if U.G. was many times antagonistic towards Krishnaji. We find that U.G. also spoke about dropping tradition, dropping nationality, dropping all religions, in a far more, in fact, radical way even than Jiddu. So these are two people who claim to have been transformed, not Tapas, she's a different category, but Vimla Thakkar and U.G. Krishnamurti. And among the, what I think is hundreds of others who might have been, we would look at briefly at a couple of them. What comes to mind is Nandini Mehta. Nandini Mehta, as many of you may have met her in the past, she and Popul Jayakar were sisters. They met Krishnaji around the same time, that is in 1948. Nandini's father-in-law was his follower, and it is he who brought Nandini to meet him. She was in a marriage which was devoid of love and where her husband was rather dominant. And after meeting Krishnaji, she got the courage to leave this marriage. Even though this was a huge case, it was a court case. In the court case, Krishnaji was cited. The whole, he was a very prominent businessman, father-in-law. So it was even reported in Time magazine. The thing is that Nandini was motivated to change. She left her marriage even though it meant losing her children. She was able to be independent thereafter, to think for herself. Much later, she started a school. A few years later, not much later, about 6 years later, she started a school for street children in Mumbai. Krishnaji continued to be in touch with her, and he wrote many letters to her, guiding her. And I think Upul Jayakar has put some of these letters in her book, which is Letters to a Young Friend. But also, I think there is now a separate book on these letters, which are very valuable to read, where he provides insights and guidance to Nandini. So we would also look at the question of David Bohm. David Bohm, as many of you know, was this physicist with whom Krishnaji had numerous dialogues. He seemed to be transformed, but then he had these periods of depression, which does not exactly go with a total transformation. So these are some questions which I hope all of you will discuss. Here we have, of course, with us today, Dr. Parekh, who was also, I think, transformed. He met Krishnaji, or he heard him speak, and thereafter he devoted his life to Krishnaji and his schools and education. So we come back, we And again, I would say that I think through the schools, through the people he met, through the talks and videos, there were many who changed. To what extent they changed and to what extent we can change is a different matter. So I would say that the person who has changed, I'm giving a few points here, which I hope some of you will add to it. The person who has changed has an essential goodness, love and compassion for others, freedom from anger and jealousy, and non-identity with a nation, religion, or caste or sect. Today, we would ask ourselves again, how does this change take place? 1986, Krishnamurti passed away. It was a long time ago. He said that his energy had gone from the world, that it did not exist anywhere, but that if you focus, if you read, if you listen, perhaps you could still change. I would like to bring up one more thing. It is by reading, by experimenting, not just reading. Did all these changes take place only when Krishnaji was alive? Is there anyone, foundation members or others may know, is there anyone who has drastically, even partially changed after his death? Perhaps the children who are in the schools come up slightly different. There's certainly many of them are more tolerant, not so ambitious, not cutthroat. But is that enough? So the other thing I would bring up is how simple is it to transform oneself? What happens when you look into yourself? What about the unconscious, the aspect that keeps appearing even if you seem to have changed? I'd also would like to bring in the things that Krishnaji did not talk about in public, but which were well known to him and his close associates. Is it possible that when you try changing, there is something that stops you? He spoke about evil and evil powers to his close associates. Later on, these were written down by others. For instance, Sunanda Patwardhan had written in her book how he told her that he was always protected from TS days by two angels. And nevertheless, he said he should live a life where the angels are not required. He also explained to her that when he entered a room, how he dispelled the previous vibrations in that room. Many had seen him touching the walls of the room when he entered and clearing it of other vibrations. So Krishnaji was very aware of these evil forces. He himself would not go out at night in darkness because he felt there was something threatening around. Even in Rishi Valley, he said the Rishi Valley was fine, but outside the area, there was a darkness. At one point when Gangama, the goddess from the Gangama temple, he felt it following him back to Rishi Valley, and he told this Gangama to remain where she was. There was another time in Madras also, he felt something emanating from the temple. He felt that he had to be protected. He also protected all the places he lived in or visited with these jewels that were buried in the ground. This dates back to his theosophical days when he used to hold the jewels in his hand and give them a certain power, and then they would be buried in the northeast corner, normally, of all the places where his schools were or his residences were. So this is a question that, do these places even today have some special protective power? Do people, is this required? Can the average ordinary person living in a city listen to him and totally be transformed? Now that he is no longer there, should these people try to visit these places? This is just a question. I don't know. Is there a greater power there? Do you require a power, or is it purely individual? Uh, he spoke of this many times, only to his close associates, but this thing of burying jewels everywhere is well known. And I wonder if anyone in Rishi Valley or elsewhere has felt this, that when you are in that place, you have some kind of protection, and outside it, you don't. I'd also like to bring in, one presumes he's talking about reaching the truth. One presumes there is only one truth to be reached. There cannot be different types of truth. So apart from K, there must have been many people who have reached and understood and been transformed by that ultimate truth. So I think once again, we had mentioned earlier people like Ramakrishna and Ramana. I would again bring up very briefly their different natures, were very different from K. So were they also transformed? Is it the same kind of energy that emanates from them? And how did they help others to change? If you look at Ramakrishna, he's absolutely unique. He's not a philosopher, basically a mystic. He goes from one mystical state to the next, constantly identifying with one deity and then another deity. When he meets, I'm sure all of you have some idea of his life, but when he meets the tantric Brahmani Bhairavi, and she transforms him through tantric rites, she tells him how to. He goes into a secluded place and gets all the appurtenances of tantric rites, including skulls, etc. And he sits with that until he reaches the truth through the tantric path. Then we have the Advaita teacher who comes to him. Ramakrishna has a real problem understanding Advaita because he always sees an image, a vision of the goddess Kali, who was very dear to him. But finally, this Totapuri, this Advaita master, pokes his third eye with a piece of glass, whereupon he drops all these visions and he sees the formless Brahman. There are numerous other such instances. When he wants to, he experiences Islam through a Sufi saint. He follows the customs of Islam and then sees the one God through Islam, or the one truth. Similarly, he does this with Christianity. He totally identifies with whatever he is trying to reach. If he wants to realize Krishna, he identifies with Radha. Once he is trying to realize Hanuman, he focuses so much on Hanuman, he says a small tail grows 1 inch, which then disappears after some time. So Ramakrishna is a totally unique phenomenon. I don't know of anyone else like that, who is a total mystic. Yet he brings, through him, we have the philosopher Vivekananda. It seems he transformed, Ramakrishna transformed people just by touching them with his foot. He touched Vivekananda, and a few more touches, and Vivekananda was transformed, saw the truth of Brahman, and of course became a great philosopher. Then we have Ramana. Ramana was again totally different. He too went through many experiences where he seemed to have no knowledge. Uh, Also, it is said Ramakrishna didn't sleep at all for 6 years. His eyes were open, they wouldn't shut. So these are a totally different kind of experience. Then Ramanna also used to go into trances. He didn't know what he was doing. I think it was like 3.5 years. He had to be looked after until he finally settled in near Arunachalam. And he did not speak much. As everyone knows, he used to ask the question, who am I? Ask that to yourself. And his method of transformation was merely to look at the person. He hardly ever spoke to the person. The person would come and sit near him. Many people rose from there thinking or believing that they were transformed. Now we have among us, well, not exactly among us, but a former uh, Krishnamurti and spiritual person who is now Sri M, but I don't think he claims to have been transformed by Krishnamurti, but it was certainly one aspect of him reaching where he is today. But I think I would like to hear other people's experiences of what they feel. And I have heard Dr. Parikh's experiences of his transformation and would like to raise these questions. Is there one truth? Is any path? There is a pathless land, but is there an individual way to reach that truth? What can we do today to bring about change when we see the world in conflict? Is it only to listen to K and try to transform ourselves, or is there something else? This is a question which I'm sure we all wake up with every day, looking at the way the world is going. We still don't find that transformation. If we look at just one more philosopher, Sri Aurobindo, he also believed in individual transformation, and he also said that there was no path. On the other hand, he said we are evolving. So he said you will evolve to a higher level, then the world is transformed. Hope we can get some more inputs on this, like how do we bring about a change either in ourselves or in the world? I'd like to stop there.
Thank you, Roshanji. I think very interesting discourse, and you have raised lots of questions. Just to let you know, because you mentioned about Nandini ji's and her father-in-law, his name was Sir Chunni Lal Mehta, and
Yes.
and Nandini's daughter Devyani Mangal Das has written a book called Walking with Krishnamurti, The Life and Letters of Nandini Mehta.
Yes,
it has details of Nandini's interactions with Krishnaji.
Yes.
I think I want to say something before I give it to others. You mentioned about, has anybody changed? I think I'll start with myself, because I never read anything about Krishnamurti before I heard him for the first time when I was very young, 1971. And, you know, his presence was so overwhelming that it can't be explained in words. And I felt that he was talking to me, even though there was about 1,500 or 2,000 people in Rajghat. So that is how I began my journey of reading, and I couldn't understand what he's talking about, you know, through his books and all that. Much later, many years later, something has started sinking in. But I think if one starts that the goal is to change by reading Krishnamurti or hearing Krishnamurti, then one is bound to feel frustrated and unhappy and all that, because uh, Krishna says that then you fall into the process of desire, and the desire, you have fulfillment, you are happy. If it's not fulfilled, you get frustrated. All those things happen to you. But if there is a curiosity to know about yourself, because Krishna gives those pointers to us, then something can happen, or maybe nothing happens. But I think we should not start with the aim of changing ourselves. That's the one thing I wanted to mention. There is a book called Meeting Life. I don't have the book right now, otherwise I would have read it from there. Somebody asked Krishna, what is total transformation? And he says, if you see a dirt on the road and you are moved by it and remove it, that is transformation. If you see somebody on the road in pain and you are touched by it and you take him to a hospital, that is transformation. So I don't know what is a totally transformed man. I'm a trustee of the KFI myself, and I know a large number of trustees who are alive, and also know quite a few of them who are not here. But I see tremendous goodness in them, large number of them. So they must have been touched by Krishna at one point or the other, whether by hearing him or reading him or being in presence of him. Fortunately, Professor Krishna is with us, who has written a beautiful book on Krishna, his own experiences with him. So I'll request Professor Krishna to say something on what Roshan ji has said about change. Sir, would you like to say something? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Roshen, for raising very relevant and profound questions about Krishnamurti's teachings and our relationship to it. There are two or three things which come to my mind. One is that Krishnaji said, learning does not even begin until we have freed ourselves from our conditioning. And conditioning is not just religious belief and competition or comparison and so on. It runs very deep. For instance, right from childhood, one is brought up being told, do this, don't do that. This is wrong, that is right. At home, and then in school, and college, and university. That becomes a very deep conditioning in the mind, that the mind always looks at any teaching from the point of view of what I should do and what I should not do. And I have noticed it in myself and also in my colleagues, that they often approach Krishnamurti's teaching with this kind of mind and evolve a new morality out of Krishnamurti's teaching for themselves, that I should do this, should not do that. And that itself becomes a barrier, because Krishnamurti himself has pointed out repeatedly that virtue cannot be postulated and practiced. So you can't create a new morality out of Krishnamurti and practice it. So the main difficulty I have noticed is that perhaps the highly trained, educated mind itself is a barrier. The rationalization that it does, the argumentation that it is proficient at, somehow blocks the capacity to go beyond the intellect and beyond the usual mind, to come upon something that could be called spiritual or divine. And if we look at sages through the time, you find that all these sages, like starting with the Buddha and Jesus Christ and Socrates, and in our own times, all the people which Roshen has named, including Krishnamurti himself, they were not highly educated individuals. Kabir is also one of them, who was just a Julaha, weaving carpets and so on. But he got transformed, and Nisargadatta got transformed, and Ramana. So they all could go beyond their personality and come upon this total transformation in the sense of leaving their personality behind and being able to sense something beyond it. But you don't find many instances of educated minds. I mean, I think Krishnaji was perhaps fortunate in not being able to get into Oxford and getting educated and all that. He was only educated into languages to be able to speak. But it's a mystery how all that teaching came to him. He himself has discussed this, that it was not clear to him either what it was that happened. And it's very similar to what Annie Besant and Leadbeater had predicted, though they put it in terms of masters and Maitreya and so on. But that there would be an external consciousness that will operate through this individual. And strangely, those occult perceptions have been borne out, though we don't know how it all happened. So there is a great mystery surrounding Krishnamurti, as there is surrounding Ramakrishna and Kabir, and one can't explain how these things happen, which is what it means that it is pathless. And unless one comes to this freedom from your own conditioning, the cultural conditioning, the religious conditioning, the individual conditioning from your own experiences and mind and all that, all conditioning. You can doubt it and you can question it, which the intellect does, and you get rid of some of them. So it is true that one has experienced partial transformation. One has freed oneself of casteism and religious bigotry and nationalism and so on, or even comparison, so that you are freed from hierarchy and jealousy and so on. But total transformation eludes us. So there is this strong attachment to one's own conditioning, which is your own personality, which is ultimately an attachment to thinking, because thinking arises from there, from your conditioning. And that's the me, that's the I. And it's a very difficult process. Not process is not the right word, but very, very few have been able to break away from their past and go beyond it. As I said, you can count them on your fingers. Some, maybe 12 people in the whole of history of humanity that one is aware of, who have come to total transformation. But getting influenced, sudden change within the personality, these things are quite evident, and many instances you will find. So the way I look at it is, we know how a human being grows in knowledge. We have grown through experience, through school, college, and so on, through reading. how does a human being grow in wisdom? Even if you look at Gandhiji, the Gandhi who was a lawyer in England is not the same man who died in 1948. He may not have been totally free and totally transformed, but there was tremendous transformation in that person. So partial transformation seems to me to be a fact, though Krishnamurti denies it, because he was only concerned with setting man totally free. And therefore he accepts no gradation in it. In the ultimate sense of coming into contact with something beyond the mind, that may be true. But that's not the only objective in life. There is also society, there is country, there is welfare of people, your everyday life, and so on. So transformation in these things, in your relationships and so on, also has great value in our life. So I don't agree with Krishnaji there that only being totally free has value. In fact, I questioned him once about this. I said, sir, you think of a man is different only when he is totally free, but not that two conditioned people are not very different from each other. I don't find it so. I find that there is a tremendous difference between Hitler and Gandhi, though neither of them were totally free. And his answer was, there is not a tremendous difference. It's a vast field. The ego field is a vast field. If you are in that field, better one corner than another. But live in that field with the knowledge that nothing good will ever flower in. So that's why he was not interested in social reform and so on. He said that is chicken feed. I mean, you're making small changes here and there and getting satisfied with them. His way of putting it was, why do you worship at one candle when you can have the sun? That's the kind of imagery with which he started. So these are my responses. They are not answers, but they are questions I also wonder about. Thank you. I'll end it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Krishna. Very valuable insights.
Welcome, Roshen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, Harshad Bhai.
Yes, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Krishna. Thank you, Roshen. I was teaching physics for many years. Professor Krishna was also teaching physics. In physics, there is this phenomena called escape velocity, that if you fire a space vehicle, let's say at 1 kilometer per second speed, then it will go up to certain height and distance, but it will come back on the earth. And then you increase the velocity from 1 kilometer to 2 kilometer and so on until you come to 11 kilometer per second. If you fire a space vehicle, then it will escape from the gravitational pull of the earth. That is called escape velocity. So I feel that such phenomena of escaping from the pull of power, position, money, respectability exist in human beings, that once they begin to see their own mind very, very clearly, everything, the thoughts and feelings and the whole machinery which creates problem, then there is this kind of freedom exists. And it is not there is no choice, there is no effort. And this thing started happening with my first reading of Krishnamurti book in 1972. I was doing PhD, and by reading the book, I became very curious to look at my own inner world, and I found that what Krishnamurti was saying was true, that we create many problems for ourselves because we are not aware of, and we are going round and round in thinking only. So when I begin to be very curious to look at myself, then many changes begin to happen in my body and in my brain. And it went on for 4 years, and every year something new happening. And I was writing letters to Krishnaji describing, because at that time I did not know anybody. I had no discussion with any other human beings about Krishnamurti. I was a student at Iowa State University, and later on I was doing research in Canada at University of Waterloo. So all these years, only Krishnamurti was my friend, and I had no dialogue discussion with anybody. But then I began to go to California to listen to Krishnamurti in 1977, 78, and 79 last year, when I went there and something happened to my brain in the presence of Krishnaji during a music program. And when I came out from that music program, I felt that I had no problem. I could do whatever I like to do, no thinking about money or anything like that. And then I wrote several letters, and then I met Krishnaji in Brookwood Park. And then I went to Rishi Valley, and in Rishi Valley, he was coming every year, and we had many dialogues with him. And so I find that there are no scientific tests to find out whether a person is free or whether a revolution has happened or not. Somebody else cannot tell you about yourself. Only when you feel, then that becomes your source of energy. And then you don't care about what other people say. Other people will say you are in an illusion. And many people told me when I joined Rishi Valley, they said you are in illusion. You will go back to Canada and like that. But I have never felt that there was any illusion, because the brain is actually throbbing day and night by itself, and it telling me everything what is happening. And so there is no need to read even Krishnamurti's books. And I was also attracted to Pandit Gopi Krishna, who was writing many books about Kundalini and something happening in the brain, because it was happening in me. So I met him in Delhi in 1982. And then I met Krishnaji and talked with Krishnaji about Pandit Gopi Krishna. And they both had met each other in Sanan. But Krishnaji was not impressed by Gopi Krishna. But I felt that he was quite genuine, a mystic who had really touched something very, very deep. So this feeling of transformation or a change is a subjective experience. I don't think the scientists have found out any test to find out whether a person is really transformed or not. And I feel that many people have got something, what I have got from Krishnaji, many people have got it from Krishnaji. And one person I know, Dada, Gavan Maharashtrian gentleman, he had visited Rishi Valley as my guest, and we had a correspondent. I had also met Vimla Thakkar. So other people, they don't know what is happening in you. Even Krishnaji may not know. I would feel that as Krishnaji said, nobody knew what went in his brain. In the same way, this thing is to be felt by oneself, and one can speak about it, but it may not make any impact on other people. So I feel that this is possible for a human being, in spite of having knowledge, in spite of going to university and gathering knowledge of science, there is still possibility to set aside that knowledge and look, set aside even the knowledge which we have got from Krishnamurti and look directly at our own self. And that freedom is available to people if they are very, very passionate and they feel that this is the most important thing in their life. Okay, I have said enough thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very valuable. That I think we can all take some inspiration from that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Dinesh Waghmare.
Are you able to listen to me, madam?
Yes.
I would like
Yes.
to express my views. I would like to express my views on this. Some things are repeated because this was made prior to your speaking. So please forgive me for that. We have to first define what is change we are looking for.
Right.
We are in 2023. Quite a time has passed since JK's teachings, and since then people have done a lot of working, enough working, and we have results available with us now. If we talk on mutation of brain cells and radical revolution, few people might have reached to that stage. We do not know. But if you ask me, then in my views, seed had been sown by JK and it is working in all the JK readers. Also, people talk a lot about quiet and silent mind. But in my views, this is just a milestone. Real change is availability of fresh, young, new energy, of enthusiasm, despite of aging, which will keep brain cells always new, fresh, and in present. Natural freedom available with it, which will be creative. So fresh energy, freedom, and creativity are of the importance. If I observe myself, then in these 25 years, my reaction level in relationship have gone down. I got freedom from my past hurts and other many suppressed emotions. Got freedom from anger, greed, competition, comparison, etc., and other such vices to a great extent. Also, fear has reached to reduced to a great level. And egotistic movement of mind comes to awareness as soon as it is arised. So such changes have taken place, which are remarkable as far as my individuality is concerned. And you were asking other questions about the saints, and you are now reading Arvind also. So, madam, in Synthesis of Yoga, Arvind has clarified that the supramental works through the person as per his individuality and purpose of life or worldly task, using him as medium. So this is very clear that all saints, their inner state may be the similar, but their worldly tasks are different. So their behavior and their whatever they work, there will be a quite lot of difference. Whatever you have talked about Raman Maharshi or this other saints, you will find that there is a lot of difference. You will not find anything common except their inner state. So as far as I am concerned, an alert calmness of mind with reduced thought is achieved. So I can talk about myself this much, and I thank you.
Thank you. Very valuable.
Yes, Mr. Shankar. Possible, please bring the video also.
Video? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, respected Madam Speaker. I think I see in most of the Zoom meetings that we hold too much to the personality of Krishnamurti and all the masters. I think which we are making a big mistake. We should only hold on to the teaching, we should even forget what is Krishna, who is Krishnamurti. We should only hold on to the teaching like word is not the thing, observe is the observed, what is choiceless awareness, and we have to dwell deep into it. And coming to the asking questions like whether he is transformed or he is transformed or not, it has nothing to do with us. Whether that guy is transformed, Buddha is transformed or not, we have nothing to do with it. We are only about ourselves. So in my understanding, in Krishnamurti teachings, if we see the non-verbal living, through the non-verbal living, we'll understand that whatever we perceive, everything is because of the projection of mind, because the mind is projecting all this. Even you can't believe Krishnamurti has not touched this, but many masters have touched this. Truth that even thinking that I'm a human being is also a thought. So understanding how thought is projecting all this knowledge is very important. This perceiving through name and form has created all this world. There is only a single matter. We look at it as human beings, trees, laptops, computers, gold, everything. But there's no so much matter. There's only one matter. It is all because of the knowledge, because of seeing through labeling, we look differently. And when I'm speaking now also, you only hear the sound. There's only sound is coming. But we don't listen to the sound, we listen to the words. That is because of the mind. We translate that sound into the brain, translate the sound into the words and meanings because of the knowledge we accumulated in the past. So it is very, very simple. We made it complicated because of reading too much teaching. Read any one teaching and go into deeper and talk to people. Easily you can come out of it. But no doubt, after understanding all this, observing your own thoughts, in spite of understanding all this, you still have thoughts. You still get carried away by thought because of inattention. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Pradeep Verma.
Yes. Good morning, friends. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, ma'am, you have presented a historical perspective on the life and times of Krishnamurti. So true to your profession. And the topic today, very interesting to me. Has anyone changed an analysis? To me, the topic itself demands analysis as to what could be the motive behind taking up such a topic, which necessarily includes the analyzer with all the biological, sociological, and psychological complexities. Next comes thing to be analyzed, which again in the present case, a daunting work, daunting task. It looks easier to analyze the so-called other or someone, but it starts with the analyzer. It starts with me to be perfect. It starts with the analyzer and its level of freedom, my level of freedom, and ends up in a document with collected facts and figures and some conclusions. Krishnamurti very forcefully talked about freedom from the past as a precondition to resolve present crisis and to see things as they are. He also said, it sounds a little sarcastic, analysis is paralysis. History is a large domain of past thought and time. Human memory is so short that it is hardly available when it could matter. History repeats because man has not changed psychologically, and thoughts can never change the human consciousness. Just a minute. Krishnamurti calls it the game of analysis. He says this analysis is the game of analysis. Psychotherapists go back to find something in the past. Analyzer is the analyzed. I will quote one beautiful quotation. Analysis will not resolve the hurts. Analysis is a form of paralysis and it cannot resolve the hurts. So what have you? You see very clearly that you are hurt and that neither thought nor analysis can resolve it. What takes place in the mind that has seen the truth of the process of thought with all its association? It is thought that has created the image about yourself, and that image has been hurt. Krishnamurti on Love and Loneliness, page 134. So one of the important question is how a historian will participate in an ever-changing present and contribute towards a new dawn. This is the question. We were talking about total transformation. Suddenly a thought came to me that once I realized the total futility of the past, then it should be easy. Then whatever happens next will be in a transformed state. You will be guided by the cosmos, not by the self. So once we realize, that is what he was talking as I don't know state. Once you are in that state, so the entire conditioning is out in a way. I'm not saying that forever the man becomes totally transformed, the man becomes for times to come. But since he talks about moment to moment, the moment I realize the futility of past and something I am able to take straight head on the challenges of life, I think something will happen to all of us. This is what my realization, this is what I don't call it realization. This is what my feeling is. And you will be ever energized with a fresh energy, always fresh, because the futility past is so beautifully realized. Thank you very much for giving me enough time. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. But I would just like to respond very briefly to this.
Yes.
History is a discipline which you study, just like physics or anything else. It is not that because I study history, I'm living in the past. There's a totally different dimension to life, which is like anybody else's life. To me, the study of history is very valuable, but not in the context of Krishnamurti. These are two different things. It's a subject one studies as one may study chemistry or physics or astronomy or anything under the sun. And it does teach one a lot. But the question today is a little bit different. We are not looking at Krishnamurti through his history, at least not today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pradeep Prakash. Pradeep, you unmute yourself.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just let me switch on the video. Okay, I have 5 comments to make which are related and maybe contradictory as well. The first is total transformation understanding by Pradeep. See, when somebody is going in a dark, semi-darkness and suddenly sees a snake, and then there's a lightning and he says it is not snake. At that time, he's totally afraid of snake. But the moment he realizes it is not snake, it is rope. This is a very common example. Is that a transformation, total transformation, because there is no fear, there is no, you are at ease and there is no fear. So how I connected with awakening of intelligence, the word that Krishna ji has used is, there's a clear seeing of pain of ego and how it is influencing the life, and at the same time seeing that the choiceless awareness has nothing to do with ego. The awakening of intelligence is seeing this entire thing very clearly, because all the pain and joys are in ego. The pain of jealousy, the pain of inadequacy, smallness, all the problems come from ego, and also all the pleasures of being big, being wealthy, being whatever, all that damn thing. So seeing this together, the pain of ego and how that all the problems of life are actually of the ego, and also simultaneously having the awareness of choiceless awareness, where nothing ever happens. It's a changeless, timeless, and nothing ever is totally free thing. So seeing these things together, that awakening is like that lightning which makes the snake of ego transform into a rope of choiceless awareness. So that is the total transformation as far as Pradeep understands it. Now, is there a need of enlightened master to awaken this intelligence? In the personal experience of Pradeep, he used to sit with an enlightened master, and there he suddenly realized one day that, oh, nothing ever happens to me. I am the changeless witnessing consciousness. In that silence, in the presence of that silence, this awakening happens. But that awakening did not, I mean, it's like you see in the lightning, and then again you move into ego, and then that continues. So but slowly, whatever happens when, then sometimes the things come together and you see this pain and it drops, the ego just drops. So, and that awareness and freedom remains. So that's why I see the need of enlightened master, because in that presence, the silence, you realize that there's a changelessness in the self. Now, the other point that Pradeep wants to make is that this desire of transformation is no different from any other desire of wealth or ambition or this thing. So this desire is of the ego, and therefore it is, and like Dubeji said also, this desire of transformation itself is a worldly desire actually. So, and also there's one more point I do see that such individuals, I seem to be protected by some forces behind. And this is the personal experience of Pradeep also. There's a lot of protection available and things happen like that. So I'm, connecting these 4 or 5 things and saying, so then the question is Pradeep really free right now? Is he really enjoy? So I would say that this is a semi-awake, sometimes in ego, all the pain, and suddenly then, oh no, I am a changeless, nothing ever happens to me. You meditate and all that, and you awaken yourself. So I see Pradeep as, in semi-awakened state. Sometimes he goes into dreams, sometimes he wakes up and all. There is no permanent state of choiceless awareness and nothing ever happens. And let me tell you, uh, as long as the body will remain, the ego has to be there. Otherwise, body will not survive. So this is my understanding I want to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you. I think, yes, as long as you're in the world, the ego remains. But can it be a different type of ego? Can it be an ego which is full of goodness and compassion? Or does there have to be no ego? I'm not very clear. I don't think really you can in the world uh, without some sense of individuality, at least so far. There are future projections made by Sri Aurobindo and the mother of the future.
I think we can live with that question. It's a very important thing. Yes, Mr. Rama Rao, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Sir, most of the things which I want to say already the speakers mentioned it. Simply, I will repeat it. It is a fact that when we seek for something, either transformation or anything, it will become another part of the hindrance to move forward. It will become a lethargy. It will obstruction.
to see that one, that is a good enough to transform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rama Rao. Thank you.
Thank you. It's another form of desire to seek transformation.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I think even Krishna ji, if he was not, he was already transformed, but even he was seeking, he did want that others be transformed. Is that also a desire? He would not otherwise have said that nobody has changed and given instances of it. He did want people to be transformed and the world also to be transformed.
Yes. Since we don't have any questions or comments to make, we can close the session now. And I want to thank Roshen ji for being with us. Thank you again, ma'am. Thanks a lot for sparing your time. Yes, Ravi has something to say. Yes, let's take the last question. Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes. Put on your video, please.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. I don't know. I don't have much to say, but I see that this question that has anyone changed? I see that this is a wrong question. I mean, why you are interested in whether other has changed or not? This is a kind of seeing in a wrong direction. I mean, it seems that the mind is living in its own comfort zone and thinking about the images of enlightened one and non-enlightened one. So it's a crap thing. It has. You're really not serious. Why I'm interested in whether Krishna ji or whether Ramana has changed or not. Why have you gone to read them? It's all because you want to change. So let the focus be clear that it is, and then see what there is what demand that which wants to change, and the change is there are when you see things like started seeing things without justifying and condemning. There is I can put in terms that there is a bigger consciousness, not like that, but there is an evolution of the consciousness, one's own consciousness, but still the continuity is there, the continuity, the change. So you have to see the question actually. If you are with the question, with the wrong question, you have to see that and drop that. I think that is enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Prasad ji, please unmute yourself. Let it be the last question now.
Yeah, hi, sir. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So I was just thinking for myself what is changed based on what everyone is speaking, and a small thing came to my mind. So I just want to add something here. I may be right or wrong, but keeping it in front of all of you will so change. It happens with, as we all know, with perception, and then one major factor in perception is death, actually. So so maybe I'm verbalizing, but this is my little bit of learning for this moment. So we perceive, and then the death happens with. So it's not that I want to die to something, but the very perception, when it is pure, death happens, and the change is something we are unaware of. It's not that we are aware of what we want to go, where you want to land on. So you don't know the land where you are going to land. So that is a small bit of learning from this meeting. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Prasad ji. I think we have come to the close of the session now. Thank you, Roshen ji, for bringing a theme which is so thought-provoking. And we hope to get you back again sometimes in near future. We'll get in touch. Thanks a lot for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who contributed, and most of all to organizers, to Beji and all from Indore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next Sunday, topic
Jain Sahab, Dubey ji is not there.
okay. Now you can close it. Thank you.